All right, so we are going to hop right in. My name is Christy Venable, and I am the CEO and founder of Smile Therapy Services. And Smile Therapy Services is a mental health and wellness agency. And we're actually based in the District of Columbia, in DC, but we service the entire United States. And so I have two of my amazing employees here with me, and they are my co-hosts for today. And they will introduce themselves, starting with Miss Madison Myrick.
Hi, my name is Madison Myrick. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm currently the clinical director at Smile Therapy Services. I'm so happy to be here. I have been in the mental health field for 10 plus years now, so the pandemic makes it feel like it's been 5 added on to that. But it has just been wonderful serving in this wonderful field that we are in terms of mental health. I'm also a wife, mother, military spouse. And so I know everything in the world just about transitions and life happenings and just anything that there is mental health. So thank you guys for having me today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Javay Evans. I am also a licensed independent clinical social worker. I have been working in the field since 2008 in mental health, and I truly feel passionate about working with people of color, Black women, helping people with depression and anxiety and life transitions is something that I truly enjoy, along with educating, and that's a part of my role as the lead community-based therapist. And so I'll also be helping with that component at Smile Therapy Services, helping with those continuing education credits in the future. When I'm not here, I'm a creative. I love all things creative, dance, singing, all of that. That's my jam. That's my self-care.
Yes. And so I'll just actually throw out a little fun fact here about both Javay and Madison. So,
Yes.
although they are brilliant minds, they are also former Redskins cheerleaders. So,
Yes, we are.
that's definitely a fun fact that they both have. So we definitely just love that, we not only have intelligent therapists, but we are all very well rounded. And so definitely a little fun fact there for them. So we are going to dive in today. But before we dive in, we really want to make sure that you all are going to really take in the information and the strategies that we're going to be providing. And so we're actually going to start off with a little mindfulness and grounding. And so, grounding is a coping strategy that we use a lot in the therapeutic world. And it really helps you to connect with the here and now and the present. Grounding is great for anxiety. If you're having any like negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts, it's really great to help you to just bring you back to the present. And so Javay is going to lead us in a grounding technique. So open your minds, open your hearts, and listen up to Javay.
Okay. So I'm going to invite you into this mindful moment. I'm going to ask that if your mind drifts away, that you allow yourself to do that and just remind yourselves to come back. You don't have to judge it. It was just a thought, it was just a concern, and you will come back to that when we're done. Take a moment to take a deep breath in, breathing in slowly through your nose for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out as you're breathing out like you're blowing candles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take another deep breath in, breathing in slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold that breath and release it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Allow yourself in this moment to hold on to something you feel grateful for. What is it like? What do you enjoy about that? Take another deep breath in, breathing slowly in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slowly breathing out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Repeat to yourself, I am having a good day. May I be calm. May I be peace. And may I be kind to myself. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Got me together. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you are, feeling just open, present, and just ready to receive the information. So we are going to get started. So I just want to really start with what exactly is mental health, right? We hear the words a lot, but what is mental health all about? And so, from our lens, mental health includes your emotional, your psychological, and your social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Mm-hmm. And so over these last couple of years, it's been a lot, right? We've had a lot going on. We've been struggling with this pandemic, with all of the different racial unrest. And, the buzzwords that have been going around is, we need to take care of our mental health. And mental health, is really a big deal right now. And we've been seeing it. As therapists, we have seen the needs increase, the need for therapy, the need for support, and not just individual support, but support as a whole group, as a whole community. And so, that's really why we continue to focus on making sure we're educating everyone about mental health, especially those in the workplace, and how we can really help to infuse mental health into the workplace, because it's even more important now than ever. And so, we wanted to have this talk because, one, we're wrapping up Women's History Month. Yes to all the women. But we're also wrapping up Social Work Month. And so in celebration of them both, we wanted to have this conversation around women and mental health and how the workplace actually affects our mental health being women. And so we have a few questions that we have come up with. But we definitely will be taking some of your questions as well. So if you have any, please put them in the chat box, and we'll be sure to leave some space toward the end for your questions. And so we are just going to get started. And our first question, what are we seeing as the main mental health symptoms of women coming in for therapy right now? What is it are we seeing? And so I'll let Madison kind of start, and then Jabe will jump in.
So something that I'm seeing specifically as a clinician, I see many women within the practice, and something that women come to me often in terms of dealing with mental health issues in the workplace can consist of workplace trauma. So trauma within the workplace, things that they're dealing with whether they're their coworkers, any incidents that occur and responding to them, increased anxiety and depression as well. So this could be feeling of them feeling overwhelmed or stressed or even burnt out. And we'll kind of go into later what being stressed and burnt out in those differences and understanding what those look like. Also imposter syndrome. So getting these high quality roles, these big major roles as well, and also trying to understand the role that they're in, but also having the feeling of imposter syndrome and not feeling that they're enough or they're capable within the role. And then other things that we're also seeing that comes up in the workplace are just kind of also trying to understand and manage their own expectations, whether in their job or in their personal life. And again, that comes with increased anxiety and also depression as well. So these are things that we're starting to see in the workplace amongst women, and that they bring to us every day. Another thing that they also bring is just understanding their perspective and what's happening with them in terms of the gender gap, if that exists at their job as well, and just many gaps that they deal with within the work environment, and just how to cope with that, because sometimes they may find this out on their own or through other colleagues, and it could just make them feel, how they feel about being against their male colleagues. And that's something that they also bring to the table when they come to us about things that they deal with in the workplace.
I think along with what Madison said, there's a level of perfectionism that happens. There can be intrusive thoughts that bring them guilt and shame, just stress overall. And for a lot of people, really figuring out what their boundaries are and how can they balance like this want to do so well and this want to be a mom, to be a daughter, to be a sister, to be a friend, and also to be good at what they're doing and to feel effective.
Yeah. One of the memes that I actually shared with Christine Gervais recently said, make sure that you as a woman, you're caring for yourself just as much as you're caring for others. And I think, it's in our nature innately to care, right? And to be someone that's a nurturer. And so we naturally are caring for our families or caring for our friends and being available to so many different people in our lives that we often forget about how to care for ourselves and identify our needs first. And that's really important because you can't pour from an empty cup. But oftentimes women that I'm seeing in the practice, they are pouring from an empty cup, or sometimes there's no cup at all. They're using just something to pour from. And they're just saying, I'm just doing what I can and doing as much as I can. And that's not always the best form of practice for us. And so just helping them navigate through all of those issues.
Yes, thank you so much. You guys hit on so many different important topics. And I think a lot of people here can really resonate with it. Because I think we all have been in those spaces where we have either felt those different things or, taking care of other people more than we're taking care of ourselves. That's major. It is really major for a lot of women because we're naturally nurturers. And so we naturally kind of put people before ourselves. It's just a natural thing that we have, but it's so important for us, like you said, to make sure that our cup is filled as well. And I also just wanted to touch on this idea of burnout. And I think it's, we've really been talking about burnout a lot as well, because we have been just in another type of space recently with everything that has been going on. And so I really wanted to identify, what is burnout? And so the definition of burnout is it's a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion. And it's caused by excessive and prolonged stress. And so, we really want people to be able to identify when you are feeling or when you are maybe even on your way to burnout, to make sure that you can put things in place. Like they said, setting those boundaries, really kind of seeing, okay, what can I take off my plate? How can I, what things can I put in place to help myself? And so it's just so important for us. So thank you for that. And please continue to put your questions or comments in the chat. Thank you. We love to see them. So our next question that we're going to touch on is what challenges have the pandemic escalated for women in the workplace? Because it has definitely been an escalation of a lot of different challenges. You know, I feel like the pandemic in itself just is a challenge. Just hearing the word is traumatic at this point. And so, you know, Javay, you could just start us off. What has the pandemic escalated for us?
I think it's escalated stress, anxiety. You have people who had never experienced anxiety saying, I'm so anxious. I think roles, like re-exploring what are our roles, because that's a part of your mental well-being, being able to see who you are and what your values are. Because as you are trying to prioritize multiple things, you have to think, how does this align with my values? Particularly when you're under stress and you feel like I have to manage my children, their schools are closing at times, or even if they have a mild cold, now they can't go to school, but I have a project at work. So how do I balance that? And who do I say no to? Am I constantly saying no to myself? I think it's caused a lot of people to reevaluate what self-care is and to put themselves back on the table, which is some of what Madison was discussing before. And in general, just the isolation that people have felt, and even some people now in not working in the office, actually is a part of the stress. You know, when you have a separation of home and work life, that can make it a little easier to turn that light switch off. But now you can't escape that if you haven't been able to leave out the house. And I think most of us, especially with gas prices, we're like, yes, keep me home, keep me home. But at the same time, for some people mentally, the idea of them getting up and going to work actually works for them. So that's why I would say a lot of people have experienced a lot of turmoil around that balance.
Yeah, I see some of our therapists in the chat. Hi, everyone. I love what Beth pointed out is that we are going through parallel experience with our clients and navigating in real time. You know, that grief, loss, pandemic transitions, that is so timely and accurate. Because that's very true. We're going through a lot of things in real time. I've learned as a clinician, I feel like that's why I said the pandemic has made it feel like we've been working for actually 5 years. It's tacked on a 5-year time frame because we are really working with people. I mean, we are on it. We're responding to a crisis. We're, you know, making sure that they're having their sessions. If you need 2 sessions a week, let's get you in here. We're trying to make sure we are stabilizing everyone. So I completely agree with that. And I think with that comes too, you know, I think Javay touched on a really good point about isolation. And so in isolation, I think in terms, it's exacerbated every opportunity to be on social media more and to see a lot of different social media platforms more. And so we have these, I like to really say unrealistic expectations based off of social media that we've been introduced to. You know, I know I have been a culprit of it. And, you know, I have said, you know, I like decor, home decor. So if I see all these home decor pages, I'm going to think I need to redecorate my home. When in actuality, I don't. So, you know, just a simple example like that, just having these, unrealistic expectations or expectations that don't truly apply to you and who you are or your needs. And so, you know, we have to be mindful of that when we are isolating ourselves at times and we put ourselves in those spaces to really start to check in with our friends and family and people who love us because they provide us reminders of who we really are and our needs.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And, you know, I think you guys hit on a good point as well. And I'll hold the space right here for us as clinicians. And so it's been super difficult. Like Madison said, we have been in overdrive for more than 2 years. And I think that people, even though a lot of people are in need, you know, and I'll say clinicians and healthcare workers, you know, yes, we are the helpers, but we are still human, you know, and we still need our own help through everything that's going on, you know, that which really just ties to what Beth says. It has been tough. It's been tough for us, you know. We've been in crisis mode, you know, literally over 2 years, and that in itself just can be kind of at that point of burnout, right? Can cause a point of burnout. And so we've had to make sure that we intentionally put things in place for us personally to make sure that we are able to actually help those that are coming to us for help. And so I know that we have quite a few clinicians that may be joining us, or people that's in either the healthcare field. And so I want to hold space for us right now, because I know we know, we all three of us, we know it has been tough. It's been so tough for us. And, you know, I really want to just make sure that we support each other as well, because all we had, we felt like was each other to really help to uplift us, so we can literally be there for our clients, for our corporate partners, for everyone. And so, you know, just definitely wanted to make sure we hold that space. I see someone in the comments, and she put, I really have been looking for support for my workplace stress. And it's, you know, and that's why we're here, you know, to one, shed light on what we have to deal with as it relates to just stress in general, but then, you know, maybe added stress that may be coming from the workplace. And so, you know, we have a few more questions that will actually hit to kind of answering that question. And so we are going to, you know, move along to the next question. And that is, what are some strategies can women put in place to help decrease their mental health symptoms?
That's a great question. So I can start, or did you want to start, Julie?
No, you can start. Go ahead.
Okay. So some of the strategies that I think could be very helpful, you know, and I see Dr. Mead is in the chat, and I want to point out that comment too, because we do have a lot of new clinicians where this was their first job out of graduate school, and this was their first experience even experiencing clients and being a clinician in real time. And so, you know, I think that's a really good point to acknowledge. You know, we have been isolated for so long, and some people have been starting their career within the pandemic and have no concept of what company culture is like, or just knowing what it's like to work and set those boundaries. And so I think the first point is self-awareness. And so I've learned that with my supervisee, I've had to really help them be self-aware of how they're showing up in the space. And so that you know, kind of give them a frame of reference and making them aware of how they're showing up to work, how they're showing up in the workspace. That's really important. Reframing the way that you look at work. So really identifying your values and why you do this work every day. I have certainly been in moments where I have sat here at the table and said, whew, tell me why I do this work again. You know, like, to be honest, you know, like, tell me what's my purpose here? What do I value? And I have had to do that because, you know, outside of really genuinely wanting to help people, you know, mental health is something that I truly value in my life, you know, in my life. And so I want to make sure that, you know, I'm doing that for everyone else that I work with. So that's something that you do sometimes have to remind yourself. And something else that really holds that space for me is in your profession, you know, going to those professional workshops or going to those continuing education opportunities and connecting with other people and networking, because that will really fulfill and drive your values and your purpose for this work and will serve as a reminder. Javay provided a wonderful mindful minute for us. So just to stop and breathe. I know that, you might see a lot of commercials and advertisements about deep breathing and exercises, but it is really, physiologically healthy for us to actually stop and take a deep breath. It really helps the brain. And I won't get into the science of it because that could be confusing, but it truly helps you release and reset in that moment, right? I love that comment of a daily practice of nervous system regulation. That's exactly what it is in my own therapy. Without those, I could not serve well. And I love that comment because something else that we're advocates of, our therapists, one of our requirements, you go see your therapist. You put it on your schedule. It's a must. To me, you can't be a therapist if you don't see your therapist. That's just what it is. Right. They can't exist if you don't do that. So you have to make sure that you check in and you have your own help, and you make sure that you identify who that is. Making sure you identify your needs is another thing. So, talking about what you need, whether it's in the workplace or in your personal life. Identifying what exactly do I need, and also communicating. I've learned the pandemic has really helped me and forced me to actually really explicitly communicate my needs. And so I think sometimes we often feel like, oh, I am saying this, or I am saying what I need, but really saying like, actually, I need more time to do this project because my kids have been home because they've been sick, or a COVID outbreak occurred. So I am not going to be able to get to that task. And sometimes we have a hard time admitting that that's the case, because it would feel like, am I underperforming? Am I not meeting expectations? But the reality is that we're in a pandemic and life is happening. So we have to really explicitly communicate our needs to our coworkers, and identify too as well where others can help and step in and help us. And that goes into tapping into our support system. So really understanding who can support me in this moment, who can really help guide me, who can I maybe delegate this task to. I also talk about delegating too, because women in the workplace, I found a pattern. We do not like to delegate. We do not. I will claim it. We don't like to delegate. We say, I can do it. I got it. Yeah. But we need to delegate. That will really help us, delegating those tasks and identifying who can help us and who can support us in that moment. And also that will allow you to check in with that perfectionism that Javay talked about, because just because someone may not complete a task to your expectation, we have to identify that they've completed a task for you and that they've moved you along the way, right? They've got you to a certain point. So maybe that means, okay, let me check in with that person to really explicitly say, okay, I see what you did here. Thank you so much. Now, if you add this, that'll be great, right? And so that's really helpful. I saw the comment of many companies and coworkers have no empathy for that. That's true. And we'll get into that about what we can do more, which is providing that space and empathy. People are human. So we have to understand people make mistakes. And that's something that we keep practicing and preaching to other companies as we partner with them, is that you have to hold the space for empathy. Yeah. Your employees are your people, and that's it. Yes, Devin, thank you. And also reevaluating your priorities. So, when you're reevaluating your priorities, and I heard Christy and Javay say that as well, looking at your plate and really identifying what is the priority here, and what should come first, and then what can I maybe delegate to or maybe save for later. And again, too, we talk about this too, as far as incorporating a health aspect of incorporating physical activities and eating in a healthy and appropriate way. And so what that means is sometimes for me, myself, actually eating. For me, it's really eating. Making sure that you have an actual meal.
Eating lunch.
Right, eating lunch and incorporating that. We push that to our therapists as well. No matter how busy your day is, take some time and make sure that you are eating, because you have to fuel your body. You have to fuel your brain to function. And so you have to eat and make sure you're drinking your water and you know, taking a walk to make sure you kind of incorporate that fitness while you're at home. So yeah, so just, you know, incorporating that. And I already saw that self-compassion and empathy, that's also something that can also help. And creating a community. I think that that's my last point, is that when you are in the workplace, I always encourage a lot of my colleagues when they go into a space and they say, you know, I don't have yes, I work in this space, but I don't have a sense of community. Don't be afraid to start one. You can be someone to say, you know what, I'm going to start, you know, this coalition and maybe start a lunch group so that I can connect and network within my my area or my work area, and also foster different relationships. And I think that's really important to do that, because it again is a form of self-care and will really help decrease those symptoms.
Yeah. I like that Shar said lunch is also self-care.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So we have to remember that. Okay. We literally had to make our therapist put it on their schedule. Because we would go without eating, because, you know, you're just working, especially when you're at home. So yes, thank you. And so I am making sure I'm tracking time, and I do see a couple questions that have come through. So we're going to actually go into our question around the companies. And so what is actually missing at some or many of the companies to improve women's mental health in the workplace? And Javed, you can kick us off, and then we're going to go into a couple of the questions that we saw in the chat. But what's missing? What do companies need to actually start doing?
I think that, well, one, if we look at just the culture that we live in here in America, if you talk to average adults, they probably cannot tell you, if you ask them how they were doing, they probably say good, fine, okay. In terms of like actual emotional awareness or social intelligence, I think that that's at the base of where companies need to start. And, you know, companies like ours and other companies that are out there providing education in these spaces, which they need to, because one, you have to have that emotional awareness that Madison actually spoke about, to even know to think about someone's mental health. And also for people to be able to communicate what it is they're experiencing. If you don't have the words to it, you probably are actually confusing your thoughts and your feelings. The other thing that needs to happen is just inclusion. When it comes to fairness and equity, if you are working for a company and males are paid more, that's a problem. What does that say about how you value the women that are giving their time, their energy, especially if they work in the helping profession, where we want to keep giving, but we should be compensated fairly? That can really bother a lot of people, along with microaggressions when those are not addressed, and holding both men and women accountable equally. You know, a lot of times you may see that there can be a little bit of cattiness places where, you know, if a woman does something, it's like, we need to let her know that's not okay. But somehow things are permissible when it's a male, or just ensuring that women who work in the environments, they have not only a seat at the table, but you're actually listening to what they bring to the table. So those are really important things that companies and leaders need to be aware of. Just in general, just really being mindful that microaggressions can be racial, but they can also even be related to gender.
You know, and I also think with the companies, really training the leaders to be emotionally intelligent, right? And so someone made a comment earlier about companies just not having empathy, you know, and the company culture really showing that, right? So that means they're not giving grace for, you know, I need more time. They're not giving grace to people who are dealing with difficulty in their personal lives. You know, they're not really asking people, how are you doing? How are you coping? are you managing, right? Do we need to reevaluate your schedule? We're not giving thought to that. And we're not really putting in place things that are there to help the person, as a whole human being. And just really understanding that people, yes, they have a job to do, but they have families, you know, they have other things that may go on outside of their work, and how that can affect them in the workplace. And so as the employer, how can you put different interventions into place for your employees to actually help them with things that may be going on personally? And so I think that's something else that we really have to make sure as employers you are doing, and you're even taking into consideration. Most times, a lot of employers are not even thinking about that. They're not thinking about the social emotional piece of their employees, or how certain, you know, different things that they put in place, how that affects their employees. So that's also other things that companies can do. So I did see a question, which is a very timely question. It's something that we have been starting to deal with now, as we are working with different corporations. So Danielle actually said, can you give advice on what to tell an employer that wants everyone to return to office when you disagree, but you thrived at home during the pandemic? Or should we just pivot and try to find 100% remote role with another organization? This is such a good question, and such a timely question, because actually the last few conversations that I've been having with different companies that we are, you know, in talks with, that has been the topic of discussion. You know, they are starting to mandate their employees come back to the office, but with no real reasoning, right? Other than they want them to be in the office, and without putting any interventions into place. And so, you know, what do you do, right? What do you do? I think you really explain what you need, right? Why do you maybe need to continue to be at home? How does transitioning back to the office affect you? How will it affect you, right? How will it affect your work? Because it may, you know, put you in a bad space mentally, which will actually make your work decline. And so how do you, you know, have those necessary conversations with your employer? I think it's so important for you to really, you know, advocate for yourself. And all of the employees, make sure you all are advocating for yourselves to say, you know, we've thrived this long. You know, what's the real reason behind making us come back to the office? Right? Because I don't feel like people can, you know, unless you have a job where you need to like be doing things with a machine or something, you really can be at home. You know, Smile is not going back, you know, unless only people that have to go in is a school base, you know, and that's just because schools went back in person. But we have been very successful. You know, we've been able to do what we need to do and not in the office. And so, you know, times are changing. And we have to make sure that the employers are changing with the time. And so I think if you speak to your employer and really advocate for yourself, helping them to understand what challenges this will bring to you and to your work, you know, and just see how they respond to that. And then if they don't respond well, then it may be time for you to find another job. Gervais or Madison, if you want to add on?
I was going to say, I also think that one thing that employers are, it seems like that they're worried about is company culture and connection. And so although we're able to function at home and thrive virtually, you have to still create opportunities as a company to have that culture, you know, that interaction as far as a company, so you all can connect. I think another thing too, I like the idea too of explaining how you thrive virtually. And I think too, companies have to take a fair assessment of what the organization really needs and what they require during that time, because some people actually do want to go back into the office. I'm finding some clients are like, home is cool, but you know, I miss walking around outside, and you know, I could probably shed a couple of pounds, or you know, however they feel, you know, just by not being at home. So they really just need to assess their employees' needs and see what they're willing to do. I think at this point, companies need to provide options versus just, hey, we're going back 100% remote. This is the only option. I think that people at this point like the idea of being able to pop in the office and then be at home. And so I think, you know, providing a hybrid option, or providing, you know, hey, you can come in every day in the office if you want, or you can just work virtually, but come to maybe main meetings in person, or come to events in person. I think at the end of the day, we just are at a point where we need to provide options for people, because it just allows us to kind of be versatile in our roles and different experiences. And that's just where we are with the time. So I think companies need to start pushing that, and we need to advocate for that more.
Yeah, and it also just ties into what we talked about earlier about women needing flexibility, in their schedules, you know, flexibility with what may be going on with their lives. And so it really is just a direct connection to that flexibility, but understanding that as an employer, that people need flexibility and being able to provide that. Javay, you wanted to touch on something?
Yeah, I would say also, if you're really having a hard time navigating this, checking in with your EAP office can be a helpful start, or with like HR and benefits, because there may be some space for you to really say, you know, this is exactly why I need this. And there might be buffers there that you don't know about. But going through with the EAP process, you can kind of question and ask and inquire about whether or not, if it's good for your mental health, how can you advocate for yourself? So you can kind of prepare yourself for those difficult conversations.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up EAP, you know, and that's definitely something that most companies, you know, have as it relates to a resource for mental health. However, you know, we really want to push, it's a different time right now, and people need more than just their EAP, right? And I think we were talking the other day, and Javay really spoke about making sure that companies have a streamlined process so that people can be directly connected. Because sometimes, and what we find is that employees are not able to navigate the EAP process. It's difficult. It's it's too intrusive. It's just, you know, it's too much. And sometimes when they start reaching out to the EAP, it's like they really need it. They're at their breaking point type deal. And so that's why we really suggest and recommend infuse the mental health resources inside of the workplace. It shouldn't just be go to, you know, call this number, you know, to get help. Let's actually put those things in place. Let's have those mental health workshops. Let's have those, you know, different maybe point people or wellness people that are on your team that they can instantly reach out to. I think that is so important too for organizations and companies to start. Like, we're in a different time, and we have to just do things differently, and we have to input more resources for our employees if they are going to be successful. So that's definitely something I wanted to just add. Thank you, guys. I see different comments coming up, and it's important to have a choice to either return to the office or remain remote. Having that option. I think people are agreeing with us. Being flexible, putting different interventions in place for your employees is so important. And just making sure that we hear or we know their needs. But for employees, making sure you are advocating and saying your needs. And if you don't quite know it, really work with someone to help you identify what those needs are. Because it's so important for you to be able to verbalize that. So definitely important. So we have a few more minutes. We'll get to one other hot topic question that we have, and it is related to the working mom. And so, the question is, and I know we only have a few minutes, but we're going to tackle it. How real is mommy guilt? And then what exactly is mommy guilt? And we'll try to go into a couple of things about how we can really help with that. And so Madison can lead us off with that.
Yes. So mommy guilt. I've definitely had it. So what does it mean? It simply means it's basically a pervasive feeling of not doing enough as a parent, not doing things right, or making decisions that may mess up your kids in the long run, and just not providing yourself that grace when it comes to making decisions. So mom guilt, and, dads can have guilt too. So let's not, I know we're talking about women, but dads can have it too. But, as mommy guilt for myself personally, I think in terms of just trying to, again, provide in all different areas. So saying like, okay, if my child is homesick or sick due to a COVID outbreak or whatever the case is, and things are shut down, my experience has been, my gosh, I have to work, and then my child is sitting over there, and I have to work and do this at the same time. And, it really depends on what you have going on in a household. Luckily, my husband was able to be home for a period of time, but because he's an essential employee, he has to go into the office. So, that left me with, sometimes us trying to figure out how to support our child at home. And so that can really come down to feeling guilty about having to work or having to be in a different space to not be able to feel like you can provide or support your child. And that is natural and totally normal to feel that way. And it's okay. So you can feel very overwhelmed at times. And so to overcome that feeling that you may have, it's important to identify the sources of guilt. So where is it coming from? What is giving you maybe the anxiety around having to serve different needs or serve in different areas? Javed gave this wonderful point of releasing the shame. So sometimes you feel shameful about not being able to be present or to be able to provide in that moment. And so releasing that shame from yourself and allowing yourself to have that grace where it's, you're able to make a decision. You're going to make a decision about the circumstances, and releasing that shame, and that's okay. Know your truth, and knowing your truth, meaning like, hey, this is my situation and it's okay, right? It's okay. For a moment, I'm going to put my child on the iPad just for a moment, right? Whatever that moment is, and not feeling guilty about it. Yeah. Because I know sometimes we read things, again, the social media and these expectations that we have that we're supposed to be operating in this manner and way. But again, you should operate based off of your needs and the needs of your family. And that's a way that you can release that shame and guilt of feeling that way. Spring clean your trusted circle. So I love that too, because it's, again, identifying who is in your support group, who is in your support network, who can support you. Identifying your needs means I may need to ask for help. So who can help me? Who's around me to help? I know during the pandemic, my family, my husband's family, they have stepped up in such a real way to support us because we both have to work. That's what we have to do to provide. And it's a blessing that we're able to do that. but we needed to identify who could help us in the meantime. And that's so important to do. Who in your network, and it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a close friend, or even some people use their neighbors if they feel comfortable with that. But identifying people who can truly help you navigate and help you in that moment. And listen to your children and your intuition. You know, as a parent, as a mom, we know your intuition is right on target. You know what your children need. I know for my child, you know, in particular, she's not someone who needs to be on the iPad all day, actually. So, you know, I know that she needs entertainment. She needs someone to walk her down the street to the park. She's very interactive. So, you know your children's needs. If they need a particular thing, don't feel ashamed or guilty about that. That may also mean as well that, hey, today, if my child is sick, my child may need to snuggle with me and cuddle with me today on the couch. So I'm going to take off. I'm going to take my leave. I'm going to use that PTO. And don't feel ashamed or guilty about using that, because sometimes our kids need that attention. They need that love. And so, you know, I'm going to empower all the parents to do that, because that's really important, that you assess your child's needs. And then again, you know, just feel encouraged to, again, use your tribe around you. It's really important to do that and to tap into, I also encourage women in the workplace who are mothers to tap into other moms. That's so important. There's so many mom groups in the district, in the area, within your network, but tap into the moms around you, because you will be surprised. I have moms that I run into every day, and we say, hey, are you available from this time to this time? And sometimes we've even partnered together and say, hey, you know what, we're both working at home. I have a break from this time to this time, and you have a break from this time to this time. Let's get together. So tap into other moms in your area, and maybe even in your workplace. Yeah. That's really important to do as well. And it's a really helpful guide and to help you understand how to really manage your expectations, and to just talk to other people about what they're doing. So I hope these things are truly, truly, really helpful. I know they've helped me, especially tapping into other mothers and just understanding this life of motherhood. It's a different journey every day.
I would add that, you know, for the clinicians, if you're a clinician or you're someone who's a counselor or an educator, tap into your skills. So go back to that Socratic questioning. Is my thought based on fact or feelings? You know, right now I'm judging myself pretty hard. Is this based on fact or feelings? How would someone else see this situation? And how likely is it that my fear will come true? If you miss this one soccer practice, how likely is it that your child is now going to miss the opportunity to be the next star, you know, or how likely is it that one missed daycare day is really going to lead to academic failure? It's not. And think about what is most likely to happen. And if it does happen, I think the trick of anxiety is that it tricks us into believing that we cannot handle things. That is the real trick of it. It's the uncertainty.
Yeah.
But the truth is that everything that comes up in your life, you handle it, whether it's painful or not. And I'm not saying that it's not painful at times, things that happen, but you're able and you're capable just by being you and just being.
Yeah. Javée, that was a great point. And also too, identifying what you are already doing is really important, because what you're already doing is for sure enough for your child, because you're providing the basic needs for your family and your child. And so sometimes I have to bring clients back to that moment, because they often become overwhelmed over the things that they feel like they're not doing. Again, trying to compare, you know, different expectations and things that they feel they should be doing. But, you know, I bring back the question of, what are you doing right now? What are you providing currently? And that typically is something that really helps guide them get to that space that Javée just mentioned.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just sitting and hearing, it's actually a direct connection to just being a woman in general, right? And dealing with the different, obstacles that we have, tap into your support, it's nothing that you can't deal with. Like, that, you have overcome things in the past. Even speaking to kind of that imposter syndrome that we talked about earlier, and just making sure that we continue to just have confidence in ourselves and our abilities, on what we can do. And that also helps with your mental health, helps bring down some anxiety. And so we are definitely about to wrap it up. I am so glad that you all were here today, that you just really took time to hear about just mental health, how it affects women, what are we going through right now in the workplace? What are we seeing as therapists? And so we want to encourage everyone, right? I know you heard, what we said, but be intentional about doing something different. Yeah. Actually putting things in place to help your own mental health, right? Increasing that self-care time for yourself. Making sure to advocate for yourself in the workplace. If your needs are not being met, making sure that you are expressing that to your employer, not being afraid to, really just talk up for yourself. And so we thank you again for joining us. We do have our information in. If you just have another question, any other questions that we may didn't answer, you can send me a DM directly on LinkedIn, Christy Venable. If you are just wanting to just know more about how you can implement mental health in the workplace, you can reach out to us, info@smiletherapyservices.com. Yes. Shout out to all of the Smile therapists that's on here. We see
yes.
Devin just said, that's one of our therapists. She just said, use that PTO.
Use it.
Do not be afraid to use your time off. That's what it's here for. That's why you have it. Use your sick leave. Use your, whatever. Oh, and then one more thing we didn't say about what companies can do. Increase your mental health days for your employees. That's something that we did at Smile, just knowing and understanding that sometimes they just need some days off. That's not PTO. So increase those mental health days, and actually take them. Don't just let them sit and pile up. Take your time, ladies. So we want to just congratulate all of the ladies. You guys are doing amazing work. Give yourself grace. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Madison and Javay, for co-hosting and having a great conversation. For those of you who may be watching this on the replay, because we will be posting it. I know that was a question. It is being recorded. We will post it. Please put any comments in. We will see them even after we post the replay, and we'll definitely get back to you if you have any additional questions for us. Yeah. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you all so much. And we'll see you soon, because this is our first LinkedIn Live, but not our last. So see you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Madison.